Welcome back to my theory crafting hyperfixation. Today I'm going to be talking about the Shangri-La class and what I hope it will look like in Star Trek Online, assuming it ever gets made for Stowe. I don't know if it ever will be. So I got really fixated on this after Bill Krause posted this image to his Twitter account, it's just a size comparison between various ships, several which are his own original designs. You know, we've got the refitted Constitution class, the Constitution 3, his own Shangri-La, which inspired the look of the Constitution 3, as well as the Intrepid class from Season 3 of Star Trek Picard, as well as his own Wasp class, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, and what he's calling the Blackhawk down here. It occurred to me that while a lot of us have said, myself included, that the Shangri-La class, it would be really nice if it would be included in the Star Trek Online, but the big problem with that has always been that it could never be a skin for the Constitution 3 because, look at the size difference here. I mean, the thing is over twice the size of the original Shangri-La. But then I realized this had never occurred to me before. It's almost the same size as the old school Constitution class. So if it ever is included into Star Trek Online, it could just be a variant of the old Constitution. Now, obviously, I don't know for sure if that's workable or not because, I'm not a ship artist. And, there are some, notable differences here. Like, I know the star drive section is a different shape. The pylons are in a totally different position. And the neck is also a noticeably different shape. So, again, I don't know if actually making these two kit bashable is possible. But I'm going to assume for now that they are because I made stats. Actually, I should probably address this first before I move on. So, you're probably wondering why I'm talking about the Shangri-La of all ships, given how much crap I talk about the Constitution 3, because, I'm very vocal about this. I hate the Constitution 3. I have my reasons for hating the Constitution 3. A lot of you think you know these reasons. A lot, some of you actually know the whole reasons. There's a bit to that story, but I'm not going to go into that right now. But frankly, my feelings about the Constitution 3, though, don't really transfer over to the Shangri-La, because I actually really like the Shangri-La's look. I think it's a really interesting design. It definitely works for the TMP era really nicely. That's one of the things I really like about this design, because I've always been really in favor of more TMP era ships, because we have so precious few of those. It'd be nice to be able to expand on that design style, and I think introducing that into Star Trek Online would be a really great way to do that, because I've said, for ages now that Star Trek Online really needs more TMP era ships. And I also really love the idea of the Shangri-La being a variant of the Constitution, because, like I said, they're pretty much the same size. It would also give the Shangri-La more customization options. There's a lot more customization options on the original Constitutions in Star Trek Online than on the Constitution 3, which has no customization options, and in fact is a really great screw you to the Constitution 3, because that way it still has no customization options. I'm gonna get yelled at in the comments for that. So when coming up with the hypothetical stats for the Shangri-La, I've used the Constitutions as a baseline, since I am kind of assuming that this could end up being a variation of the original Constitution. But I didn't limit it to just the original Constitutions. I also included the Discovery Constitutions, the Kelvin Constitutions, as well as the Excelsior, because I ran out of Constitutions. One thing I really wanted to encapsulate with the Shangri-La is that it be a bit more tactical focused than some of the others on this list, because it is literally listed as a tactical cruiser in that image posted by Bill Krause. And frankly, there isn't much other lore for the Shangri-La. I've been able to find very little, and that's probably because it's not actually ever been in the show or any of the books. It's just been something that's kind of been sporadically thrown around by Bill Krause and some of the other licensed material he's been able to get it into, like the Ships of the Line calendar. All we can really say for sure about the Shangri-La is that it was a tactical cruiser, and a couple of them existed in the late 23rd century to possibly the early 24th century, and that one of them was the original USS Titan, which was commanded by Savick. For a time, this version of the Titan actually served as the Federation's flagship between the decommissioning of the Enterprise A and the launching of the Enterprise B. So it being a flagship and being more tactical focused, this is why I decided to make it a battle cruiser and a command ship. But now I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's first take a look at the other ships that I am using for comparison in order for coming up with the stats for this ship. We got the Temper Light Cruiser, the legendary Constitution America Worker Light Cruiser, the Constitution 3, naturally because the Constitution 3 was inspired by the Shangri-La, so obviously this one's going to be a big one for the source of comparison, no matter how much I hate it. The Constitution Miracle Worker flight deck carrier and the Temporal flight deck carrier, also the Mirror Warship, which this one's going to be kind of the outlier of the list because of all of these, this one's going to be the most different compared to the others because they made it a warship for some reason instead of some type of cruiser like all the others are. Then there's the Kelvin Constitutions, which the first one was a heavy command cruiser. Then the legendary one, which was a Intel battle cruiser, and then the recent Constitution 2, which was an Intel cruiser. And then, like I said, I threw in the legendary Excelsior here because I ran out of Constitutions. And the Excelsior is another, Federation cruiser that would have existed in around the same time as the Shangri-La would. So it seemed like another good source of inspiration for ideas for stats. For the hull modifier, I went with 1.35. It's a bit less than the original Constitutions because both the Temporal one and the Miracle Worker one both had 1.375. So I wanted to lower that a little bit because if you look at the Shangri-La, it looks a lot like a Constitution, but there are several bits like kind of cut out of it or like reconfigured. Like the saucer section especially, like it looks like the standard Constitution saucer section, but several chunks of it are cut out with and reconfigured a bit, so it looks like it's much more specialized for tactical sort of missions instead of being much more well-rounded like the Constitutions were. So because of that, I felt like lowering the hull modifier a bit was a little bit, but to balance it out, I upped the shield modifier. Its maneuverability I kept kind of in between the two ships because this would be about the same size as these ships, so I just kind of call it even there. But I did up the speed a little bit and kept the inertia rating on the higher side than the legendary one, just because it's about the same size, but like I said, those big chunks missing out of the saucer, I feel like this would probably end up having a bit less tonnage than the original Constitutions. As you can see, a lot of the others, they're a bit higher than that or nearly the same, but that makes a bit of sense because these are all much larger versions of Constitutions. But you can still kind of, bring them in for comparison because they are ultimately all cruisers. But I wanted to stay a little bit lower than some of these in the hull modifier just because they're much larger, mostly. Again, the Mirror Constitution is going to be a bit of an outlier because it is a warship, so its stats are going to be noticeably different from the cruisers. Speaking of outliers, the legendary Kelvin Constitution, how did a ship this big get movement stats like this? This thing it's got a turn rate of 10.5, but it's got an impulse modifier of 1.7 and an inertia rating of 55. This thing has the highest inertia rating of any other ship on this list. This thing has a higher inertia rating than the Mirror Warship. How did that happen? Anyway, it's not important to this video. It's just, it seemed weird to me. But yeah, I kept the Shangri-La a bit lower than that. Power bonuses, like I said, it's a tactical cruiser. It's meant to be more tactical focused, so I wanted to focus on the weapons, but I also wanted to put some in aux and to engines. Those are mainly the power stats I like having them into, so it seems a little self-serving, I guess. So maybe you could probably take that +5 from either one of these and maybe throw it into shields instead. But I really think the +5 to the +10 to weapons is a good choice for this ship. Though, of course, if you look at the Constitution 3, it doesn't do power to engines, it does power to shields, which astonishes me too, because the Constitution 3 actually has more impulse engines than any other ship on this list. It's got like 6 on the hull itself. Yet it's also one of the slowest, having a modifier of 0.15 and having no extra power to engines. They even gave it a freaking pilot seat, and it still ends up being one of the slowest. I always found that confusing, but whatever. Anyway, I didn't want to repeat that mistake on the Shangri-La. I wanted to give it a little bit of speed, but I could see why you might want to take out some of that for shields instead. I personally wouldn't, but yeah, whatever. Not everyone is me. Anyway, a 5-3 weapons layout, because of course I gave it a 5-3 weapons layout. It is very much justified for this type of ship. I mean, the Temporal Light Cruiser had one. The legendary, both the Discovery Constitutions have one. 2 of the 3 Kelvin Constitutions have one. Of course, the Mirror Warship had one. But yeah, the 5-3, it definitely works for the ship. It's a tactical focus ship. It's a battle cruiser. It's been done on other Constitutions. It's going to have 5-3. Because it's a battle cruiser, it would only have 3 device slots. For the bridge officer seating, I'm still not completely satisfied with it, because I kind of just copy pasted the Constitution's 3 seating because I wanted it to be more tactical focused, so I wanted to make sure it had more than one tactical seat, but I didn't want to overburden it with tactical seating, so I only gave it Lieutenant Commander and an Ensign tactical seat, and then of course it's got to have a Commander level engineering seat because it's a cruiser, and then I wanted to give it a bit more science. Honestly, maybe I should have lessened it on the science seating because like I said, I've been going on about the fact that this is supposed to be a tactical cruiser, and I don't know, maybe I should have backed this down to maybe back this down to Lieutenant and then make the Universal seat a Commander seat. But then I would want to move the Intel seat down there too. Come on. There we go. So maybe it could end up looking something like that. That's not right. There we go. Yeah, so maybe it should end up looking something like that again, so it's a bit more different from the Constitution 3, so make it a little less science-focused, but you still have the option to get more science on there with that Intel seat also being the Universal seat. Honestly, yeah, I kind of like this better. So yeah, for the specializations, I wanted this to be a command ship because, like I said, this did serve at least in the existing lore that I found, the Shangri-La class USS Titan did serve as the Federation flagship for the time period in between the Enterprise A's decommissioning and the launch of the Enterprise B. So command made sense, and Intel just because, I mean, it hasn't really been done that much on other versions of the Constitution. In fact, that's one of the reasons also why I wanted command too, because you look at how often command has been used as the primary compared to other ships of, on this list. It hasn't been done that much. It's been done on the Kelvin Timeline Constitution, and that's it. It's command seating has been done on other ones, but not as the primary. So I think it'd be cool to have another command Constitution class variant. And as for the secondary intel, I mean, the secondary intel has only been done twice, and one of them was the Mirror Warship, which that one again kind of an outlier because this was the only one on the list that's not full spec. So really, the Lieutenant Commander intel seat on this thing is the only specialization seat it has. But yeah, the only other instance Intel has been used as the secondary was on the Kelvin Constitution, the legendary version, which was the Intel battlecruiser. It was also used as the primary on the ship, as well as on the primary of its successor, the Constitution 2. But again, not a lot of Intel on this list, so I feel like those were two good specializations to mix into for this ship, just to kind of help vary things up, because like Miracle Worker's been used a lot. I mean, even Pilot has been used more than I would have expected as a secondary specialization. Temporal's been used a good amount. So yeah, I felt like Intel as the secondary, command as the primary were good options here. Obviously, it's going to be full specializations. I had another category on these, whether or not it can equip dual cannons, because I'm realizing so many of these are just like normal cruisers, and it's, normal cruisers can't equip dual cannons, which is something that really annoys me, and I've been meaning to make a ranting video about it. But yeah, I wanted to make sure that that info was included on here, because battle cruisers, those can equip dual cannons, so obviously this would, but a lot of these others can't, so it would be nice to get especially like the original Constitutions. Both of those are normal cruisers, so it'd be nice to get a TOS Constitution variant that can actually equip cannons. I feel like that'd be kind of nice. But yeah, beyond that, full spec, no other special abilities. There's not much lore on this ship, so I don't think it would. There's really no call to give it like something like a Spinal Lance or something crazy like that. No hangar bays, because again, it's just a battle cruiser. I'm not making this thing a multi-mission cruiser or a dreadnought. It'd be a really small dreadnought, so that wouldn't make sense. Also, no cloak. I know the Constitution 3 has a cloak. Honestly, I don't think the Constitution 3 should have a battle cloak. It doesn't make sense to me. Like, I know in the show it had a cloak, but that's only because the Titans stole the HMS Bounty's cloaking device from the Fleet Museum. So while the Titan would have had a cloaking device, it wouldn't have kept the cloaking device, because for one, the thing was like 100 years old. You don't want to keep that's not something you want to keep on board for regular use, and also it's a museum piece. But it's not something that would have been a standard thing on the class of the ship. So it always seemed kind of weird to me that they would have included that here on the playable version of the ship, because that implies that all of the Constitution 3s have a battle cloak, but obviously they don't. I mean, heck, they didn't even give the legendary Defiant an innate cloak. The only way to give that thing a cloak is to use that console set. So the fact that this got a battle cloak, but the legendary Defiant didn't, that's just silly to me. But yeah, Shangri-La, I don't think it should have a cloak, so I didn't bother giving it one. The only other things to say is, I mean, the specializations, I mean, there's still an argument to be made for literally any of the others. I mean, because like I said in the last video, I mean, these flagship type ships, there's an argument for pretty much anything on them, because they're designed to be the things that do pretty much every kind of task you could imagine in Starfleet, because they're meant to be out there exploring the frontier. And when you're out that far in space, you kind of need to be able to do everything on your own. So, you know, there's an argument to be made for, you know, like Miracle Worker or even Pilot for any of these specializations. Well, except for primary pilot, they're not going to give a Constitution class barrel rolls. As amusing as it would be, they're not going to do it. Trust me. Yeah, as I said, I mean, there's an argument to be made for others of these, but I like the Command Intel combo. I mean, sure, you could do like Command Miracle Worker combo, because Miracle Worker hasn't been used very much as a secondary on any of these, but Command Miracle Worker is a combo that has been done a lot lately, and I've always been kind of about it, largely because it really cuts into the amount of unconventional systems triggers that you get on a ship, because neither Miracle Worker nor Command have any abilities that trigger unconventional systems. So, especially with the second specialization seat being on the universal seat, that really cuts into the amount of triggers you end up getting. But at the same time, unconventional systems triggers really aren't as like crucial as they used to be ever since the release of the T6 Obelisk console. So I mean, maybe it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But at the same time, I still kind of like the idea of Intel on it better, because Intel's got some really neat stuff on it. You can use it for like getting OSS on a build, or just getting stuff like what's it called, ionic turbulence. It's a decent debuff, and it triggers uncon, which is why I like it. But at the same time, you know, it's not enough to get like Surgical Strikes 3 on here. That you would need it to be a full Intel ship, which again has kind of been, well, it's only been done twice, so I guess there's an argument to be made for it being an Intel ship, but it being a flagship, I think Command was better. And frankly, I like Command as the primary better, because Command has the better starship mechanic, because you've got the really powerful inspiration abilities, whereas the Intel starship mechanic, not nearly as powerful. So overall, I'm really happy with this. I know I made a small change, you know, in the middle of the video, but I do like the seating better than what I had before. So yeah, if you know, this is just me screwing around because I'm, you know, thinking about it, and I just decided to make content on it because why not? But yeah, I have no idea if the ship will ever come to Star Trek Online, but if it ever does, I hope its stats look something kind of like this, because that would make me really happy. So yeah, those are the stats that I came up with for a hypothetical Shangri-La class, assuming it ever comes to Star Trek Online, which again, I don't know if it ever will or not. This is just, you know, me tinkering around in my head, because, you know, ADHD is a powerful thing. But yeah, let me know what you thought of this down below in the comments, and I swear, if one more person tells me not every ship needs a 5-3 weapons layout, I'm going to do something drastic. Seriously, it's like some of you are trying to give me an aneurysm. But yeah, while you're down there, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. If you would like to further support the channel, you can hit that join button to become a member, or you can find the link to the merch store down below, or if you're ever shopping on the Epic Games Store, be sure to use my content creator code STU1701. Any of those really help me out, and I really do appreciate it. Either way though, thank you so much for watching. My name's Stu, and I will see you guys next time.